Hey gamers, Steve from the corner. Figured I'd do this one real quick from the bed. It's a little bit more professional than from the car in the parking lot, but you know what? It's just the I kind of need to get this out quickly. So I just wanted to kind of do this. No, there might be one or two little edits in here. I just want to get my take on this out quickly before anything else. So the other day, Sony had their State of Play, basically their big June. It would have been their E3 show, essentially, right? But because they didn't have too much, it wasn't a very long show, and it wasn't labeled a PlayStation Showcase. For some reason, Sony likes to label their shows as, like, State of Plays if they're unimportant, or PlayStation Showcases if they are, which I think is really bad. They should probably just call all of them State of Plays, because honestly, there's about as much content that's important from each of them. They always have some first-party thing in them. Like, you could just have a label on State of Play if it's, like, a non-first party show, but I don't get it. That's really dumb, honestly, but whatever, besides the point. The show itself was alright, but I think the biggest thing that I noticed was after Sony had made statements to their investors a few months ago that they had no major releases planned for the remainder of the fiscal year. That means like from what it was, I think March at the time until the following March 2025. They announced Concord was already announced, but they say it's coming out in August. And then also announced Astro Bot for September. Those are two games very close to each other, and they are first-party Sony PlayStation exclusives. Like, huh? That's very confusing to me, because both games seem pretty big. Concord was a very run-of-the-mill looking hero shooter. I don't really think it looked that interesting. You didn't see the reactions for a reason. But that was still it seemed like they put a lot of money into it. It seemed like a pretty impactful release. And Astro Bot looked pretty damn good. I'm actually really excited to check that out. Coming out September 6th. I cannot wait for that. But, like, why did they not tell their investors about these? Like, that they had games like this ready to release. I think that kind of ties into a bigger problem. That made me kind of realize a bigger issue with Sony in general. And, like, you know, I know we don't really talk about PlayStation stuff too much. I really just react to their shows because I'm watching them. Might as well put the camera on in case anything cool happens. But I don't know. This time I think I kind of want to just, like, I want to get my piece out there about this, because Sony is really undervaluing or misusing, whatever word you want to use to describe it, their IPs. They really don't care about the legacy that they have built and the legacy they should continue to build with their franchises and games. All right. Now, look, I'm a big Nintendo fan. I'm used to a company that sells a console with dozens and dozens of franchises. They have exclusives coming out for all the time. Everything is on their machine. You know, just like I'm used to literally getting a game a month. In fact, in 2024, the year of the gaming drought, Nintendo has released 6 games in the first half of the year alone. They already have something scheduled for July. No doubt in my mind, they'll have another 5 games to announce come the June Direct in a few days. But like, that's the thing, right? I don't look at how much Nintendo has. Look at how little Sony has. But even what it does have, they don't care whatsoever about. They really don't give a damn about it. Astro Bot and Concord, regardless of how quality you think either game is, definitely had a lot of money put into it. So why are they here telling their investors that those games don't matter? Do they not think they are going to sell? Do they think those were a misuse of investments? Are they not going to market these games very much outside of this State of Play? Like, is August going to get here and I'm going to forget Concord even? I mean, I probably will. But is Astro Bot going to come out in September with, like, no other trailers until then? Like, you know, I really don't know. But, like, to me, I think of this situation, I think of, like, them saying, they have two first party games at least. They could have another game that's smaller as well, you know, lined up for the rest of the fiscal. We're not going to tell our investors that, though. We're going to tell them we have nothing. That is like if Nintendo said, oh, we don't have any first party releases lined up for the rest of the year, and had like a 3D Mario and the first Splatoon game, let's say, like it was a brand new IP. That is basically what Sony did. Maybe Mario's too big of a comparison. You want to say like a 3D Kirby. That's still a lineup, and those are still big releases. Nintendo would clearly care and market them and space them out better than August, September, and then nothing for the year. I genuinely cannot fathom that. But like, Sony just does not care about any of it. The only IPs that really seem to matter to them are like God of War, Horizon, whatever Naughty Dog's doing, and then like their Marvel licenses. It's really just like, it's just all whatever. Like, they're all either open world games or over-the-shoulder action games. They all have hyper-realistic graphics that get the fanboys' pants wet whenever they see how the ears look. That was the tweet I saw going, good lord. Like, it's a bit ridiculous. I think Sony definitely needs to change things because, I mean, everybody's said this a million times over. It's getting unsustainable. They can't only have one big release out every year. But I think the thing that adds to it that I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about, because a lot of people actually push for this, which it makes sense, obviously. I feel like this is going to be a bit of a hot take, might get me in some hot water, but the worst thing that Sony did to their IPs was bring them to PC. I genuinely cannot fathom why they did that. It is a different market, but eventually it will not be a different market, okay? Look, right now, the way the games industry is headed, we have Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony. Those are the guys who are making consoles, who are making exclusives for their consoles. But Microsoft has been shitting the bed constantly for over a decade now, and basically just had to admit defeat and say that they're putting their stuff on all platforms. Sony has been getting kind of close to that, and Nintendo has been keeping very close to the chest. They've been keeping everything to themselves. They make partnerships with companies to get their games, their franchises outside of gaming, but they don't do stuff like put Mario Kart on PC or the other systems because they don't need to, and that's how they sell their consoles. I understand that Sony and Microsoft have been used to the idea of people just buy the consoles for the FIFA or the Call of Duty, but I mean, I don't want to sound like a big doom and gloom future man, but we're kind of moving away from that in ways. There's a lot of I don't know, I feel like game streaming is starting to get a little bit bigger. Microsoft is kind of trying to make it a big thing with, like, I think you could get Game Pass on your phone now or something. And, you know, PC gaming, obviously it's not mainstream, but you don't know how many times I hear people say, oh, just buy a PC if you want to play the latest and greatest, right? And even then, you got Steam Decks as well for, like, PCs obviously cost a few $1,000s, but, like, you can get a Steam Deck for, like, the same price as one of the current consoles, and it'll play most of those games, at least, not all of them, but, like, a good amount. And I'm sure they're going to release better Steam Decks in the future. And if, you know, hardware jumps get smaller and smaller, then everything will be playable on a cheap Steam Deck in, like, 10 years anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So then it's really just going to come down to who's got the exclusives, who's got all the games, and Nintendo will still be around. Nintendo, they know what they're doing right now. They said no to Fortnite. Everybody cried about that. They are so smart for doing that. Samus should not be on a console other than the Switch or the Switch 2, all right? That is how they view it, and that makes so much sense to me because, you know, if you start putting your characters on other systems, they allow the consumer to see that those characters can exist on other consoles, then it becomes, oh, well, why isn't the game on the other console? And you're going to have a lot of people asking questions like that. And then maybe if the investors start asking questions like that, and then maybe if it gets to a point where people will stop buying your consoles because that's the expectation, you are going to have to reach Microsoft's low of, yeah, hey, it's me, Phil Spencer, we're going to be putting our games elsewhere, but don't worry, Xbox fans, you still should buy Xbox, even though we're phasing out the branding. Like, that is why Nintendo doesn't do that. And Sony being like, we're bringing our big games to PC is a problem for so many reasons. Okay, look, even with the few first-party titles they were putting out, I don't know how many people I would go to and they'd be like, I really shouldn't buy a PS5, but Spider-Man 2 is really tempting me to. It's really making me want to get a PS5. God of War Ragnarok, I mean, if you didn't have a PS4 anyway. Like, you know, that's where we were finally hitting that point where they put out a big first-party release that was PS5 exclusive, but they're already making it clear that those games are all coming to PC. It's not even just PS4 games now, all right? Freaking, what's it called? God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West, 2 headliner PS5 games, are on PC. Spider-Man 2 will definitely follow within a year or so. It's kind of like, it's a bit weird for me to, I don't know why they started doing this. I genuinely don't. It's been like a few years since they began this initiative, but they have less games coming out, and they are now giving their games to more people, so there's less reason to buy a PS5. You're not going to get that guy who sees that one game on PS5 and is like, I need to buy a PS5. And right now, you know, obviously console gaming is still huge and big, but I'm thinking long-term here, you know? I was looking at the Astro Bot trailer, and that game gave me hope, honestly. Like, looking at that, how just exciting it was. It wasn't a big CG teaser. It didn't look like a million other things. Didn't need a 10-minute gameplay overview where the devs say, no, we actually like the game. We swear, we promise. I'm not being whipped and chained in the background. Like, you know, just, hey, here's a gameplay trailer, here's the game, look at all the cool stuff in the game, it's self-explanatory, all right? At the start of the trailer, they show, like, Astro running to the PlayStation logo, and there's, like, a bunch of the guys, little bot dudes dressed as classic PlayStation characters, and that was really cute. That shows there's, like, a history and an ecosystem to Sony. That's what that game feels like, and as much as I say Sony is very samey, there is still a brand they have built, but I feel like by making that all they have, by those games coming out less and less frequently than they used to, and also by just bringing them all to PC all the time, it's not going to end well. It's really not. They need to get like some more creative new stuff out of themselves fast, and they need to, well, I mean, they already began the initiative, but they just need to maybe make it more exclusive to their very, very big games. If Sony was putting out, let's say, 5 first-party games a year, and then the biggest one went to PC, I think maybe they would be okay, because then it's like, well, if I buy the PS5, you know, it's cheaper than getting a PC, and I can play all these other smaller exclusives from Sony. Like, it's not like maybe some of them could be system sellers, but obviously not all of them would be, but it's more so that package deal, all right? Sony, I don't know, there's a lot of like just training, like kind of mental training going on by these companies doing that. I don't know if they realize it. I mean, Microsoft, too late, realized that, oh, hey, we got all of our consumers to buy into Game Pass, and now they don't buy our $90 games anymore. They just announced, oh my God, they just announced that the new Call of Duty is going to be on Game Pass day one. That game will not be #1 bestseller in the US for the first time, I want to say, ever now. Like, seriously, I don't know what Microsoft is thinking here. Sony, I'm just worried is going to go down that route. I finally buy a PS5. Like, I was like, you know what, let's finally jump into this, because, you know, they were building up so much goodwill in those last few years of the PS4. Going into the PS5, everybody was so excited, and I picked it up, and I got my use out of it, okay? Like, I never owned a PS4, so, you know, I was able to get a bunch of titles I'd never played before, and even then, I'm a big fighting game guy. I don't know if you know this, but that's where I play my fighting games. So, like, even when there hasn't been that much from Sony, I picked up Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, and Tekken, and I'm playing those constantly. I'm going to get the new Garo game next year, and, I mean, I'm picking up Astro, so I really don't regret buying the console or anything. This isn't like, oh, I wish Sony made my $600 purchase from 4 years ago worth it. No, I don't care. This is a good system. I just hope the next one is good, too. Like, that's really all I have to say. Like, I just genuinely, like, that's State of Play, on the topic of that, like, it was a whatever show. It was barely Sony stuff, obviously. Like, you just had Concord at the start and Astro at the end. Astro was the best thing there. Even Concord, like, you know, I feel like there was a little bit of passion put into it. There's just so much of it just like, oh, it's got that hyper-realistic look. It looks like it cost $5 billion to make or something. Like, look at how crazy the models look, and this MCU-ass dialogue, and it's a 5v5 free-to-play shoot. Like, it's so dumb and lame, but they had some interesting mechanics there. There's a whole mechanic where I think it was you get items throughout the match, or like at some point you have an inventory basically, and you could toss out your inventory like whenever during like a best of 5 or something. It's like, okay, you have these many items you can use for the entire set. I think that's a cool mechanic. That's a cool idea. All right, there's even the story, right? So Overwatch, you know, you don't really get any Overwatch lore in the actual game. A lot of shooters actually don't really have much of their lore in the games, but you know, if people like people are they're gonna see the characters and be like, they're a bit generic, but they are putting these cutscenes, I think they're like weekly cutscenes or something, into the game where like you come back and hey, there's a new cutscene where like 2 dudes who you can play as are talking, interacting, they're bouncing stuff off each other. It's fun story stuff. It's a fun way of doing narrative in a game like this. Like there's ideas here. It's just that I feel like nobody cared about it. And the fact that Sony went to their investors and said they had nothing planned when they clearly had that and Astro's plan, it just shows like how little they give a shit. They'll shut down Team Absolutely if Astro Bot doesn't sell like 10 million units in the first 2 months, I bet. And that's really sad to think about, but like, man, I don't know. The state of the Western industry is really, really toxic, man. It's just disgusting, honestly. It makes me so sad. Now we got stupid Jeff show on like the 7th. I'm sure this will go up before Jeff show. This will be like a 5-second edit. But like, literally, I don't even know what's going to be at that thing. I mean, hopefully they have like, I guess they'll have Doubt and Fatal Fury gameplay. I want to see another character of that. I like that. That game looks cool, but like, man, I don't give a shit, man. Everybody's saying gaming is like in a drought. The end of the end time is near, but like, dude, last year was crazy, and next year's gonna be even crazier, and yet you're saying that gaming is done for, all right? That's the thing. Sony is lucky that Rockstar is not putting GTA out on PC right away, because hot damn, if people have not bought a PS5 by then, the remaining people are going to buy a PS5 next year for that game. I don't think it'll be I don't think it'll be like literally record breaking. I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking that because I'm assuming like a new Mario Kart, another crazy record breaking series, is going to come out in the same like week, but maybe not. I don't know. I have weird expectations for what's going to happen next year, but I really think everybody's going to be looking back in a year from now being like, these conversations about gaming being in a drought and dying are stupid because look, Nintendo just released the Switch 2. I really hope that the lesson everybody takes away from like seeing how Nintendo did in the last 6 years and then, or 7 years now, and then like going into however well they do next generation, I hope the lesson is they need to be more like them and actually have healthy studios making multiple games a year and keeping those games exclusive. Like, again, treating their IPs with respect. Sony will, I mean, like, look, I get it, Kratos and Master Chief in Fortnite, those are cool, all right? I was saying Master Chief for Smash for a good while. I was like, yeah, that'd be crazy, you know? But those are the kind of things that, like, fans of PlayStation and Xbox have been trained to think because, you know, in my mind, they don't care as much about their IPs as Nintendo does. Nintendo is like, no, like, you could never Samus in Fortnite, no, that can't happen unless it's only on Nintendo systems, you know? Nintendo would do the console exclusive guest or cameo, but they would never do something like, here's more Mario in Fortnite on PC and PlayStation. Like, they would never do that because that is how strongly they believe in keeping their IP on their platform. Again, they've allowed them on mobile gaming, you know, that's the thing. Well, what about mobile gaming, right? Like, Nintendo's made mobile games forever, but mobile gaming is such a different beast. People say it's the same thing. It really isn't. Like, the way mobile games are designed, a lot of them, especially the Nintendo ones, are not designed like console games. They don't fit into the same sort of qualifications and specifications, which is totally fine. I think it's a totally valid way of gaming. People like mobile games, I have no issue with, you know, like, whatever. You do you. But that's the thing, it's different. It's not like direct competition. It's not like you're telling Nintendo, you buy... Nintendo obviously has to do that because, again, their system is not as powerful as the others, and the gimmick it provides is really cool. It was really cool. That's probably what sold it in the first few years, but now it's really been being sold off of how strong the Nintendo brand has gotten, and Sony could do the same thing. Sony could so easily do the same thing. I think of, when I used to think of Sony like 10 years ago, I assumed, I'm like, well, yeah, it's the same shit as Nintendo. They have plenty of exclusive franchises and series. And I look at Astro Bot and I'm like, those do exist, you know? What if Concord was cool, man? What if they cared about it? What if they cared about Astro? I mean, they care about Astro a decent amount, but like, what if they cared more about Concord? And that could actually be seen as a big PlayStation IP, you know? Like, that's the thing. They don't give a shit. They don't care, you know? Unique ideas are thrown out. Again, Concord, hopefully, you know what? Let me say this. Last thing, because this has gotten way too rambly. But a while ago, we found out that Sony had a lot of live service games in development. They basically kind of said, okay, no, only the big AAA stuff and live service. That's what we're going to do for a while. And it did not, like, everybody realized that was a bad idea. Fortnite's cool, but not everybody can be Fortnite. So, you know, a lot of those games got canceled. One of them being a Last of Us spinoff. Concord was one of the few. Concord was one of the stragglers that made it and is here with a reveal trailer with a release date of, I think it was like August 24th or something. It's actually coming out. Doubt it'll get much support. That's another thing. Like, again, these are being hyped up as these big releases that are live service, but they only get support for like 2 years before devs give up. But like, again, with something like that, like, maybe now, like, again, because all that happened, maybe all that caused them to rethink things, and once the last few games are done development, they're going to have a serious, okay, we need to get more stuff out for PlayStation. We need to start gearing up. Probably, I think at this point, they're gearing up for the launch of the new console. The way they said that PS5 is in the latter stages of its life cycle, I think they're not greenlighting any more big first-party games for PS4, PS5. I think it's all going to the next system, which is smart. I don't think there should be a Pro system, but supposedly there still is going to be one. Again, why they do these things, that was the other big mistake they have made. They should have never, I mean, whatever. It's not a big deal now because people have bought PS5s. It's sold half as much as PS4 in half the time. So, you know, hey, whatever. Or half as much as PS4 in half of its life cycle. So, you know, it's doing about as well as last system. That's better than fucking Wii U sales. Like, you know, it's sold like, what, 50 million units, 60 million, I think, at this point. Like, that's pretty good. But like again, I think it would probably like people. I think it'll drop off in the next few days or next few years, considering like that Sony clearly doesn't care about it as much. But you know, if there was a power jump, if they didn't make the Pro consoles and it was just PS4 1080p 60 to 4K just like that, you know, it would probably be a bigger deal. Kind of like how Nintendo's doing it right now. Again, we've hit the wall. We've really hit the wall. Nintendo will drop their new console, and my friend, everybody I know keeps saying they're not even going to do 4K. I still think 4K is what they're going to do, but some people I know genuinely think they will make everything 1440p. And honestly, if they do that for like 10 years, and then, or not maybe like 10 years, but like 7 years, and then they say, here's the next console, and now we're doing 4K, people would be like, holy crap, Nintendo, it took you 20 years to do 4K, what the fuck? But also, like, hey, wow, it's still a graphics jump in the year 2034 or 3 or whatever it'll be by then. Like, I don't know. This is a weird, it's a weird topic. Again, this always comes up. I remember this was the talk of the town, like, back 8 years ago. Not to this extent, but this future of gaming discussion has always been like a thing. Like I remember back in 2016, that was again another weird year for the industry. PlayStation and Microsoft were in the midpoint, and Nintendo was about to get a new piece of hardware. Nintendo was doing a lot worse back then, and gaming was still like not. It was not as depressing to talk about as it is right now, but it was still this weird space of Xbox One is shit. Are they even going to make another console? PlayStation's got cool stuff going on. Like that was the outlier. PlayStation did have a lot of cool things going on, and it was also that, is Nintendo going to come back? There were still fears of like mobile gaming taking over. VR was just coming out, you know, like different time, but similar conversation. Where will we be in 10 years from now? And I mean, you know, it's probably way too early for me to say this, but hey, considering 10 years ago what we thought and what we got, maybe we'll be in the exact same position again, or maybe we are about to see the boiling point. Microsoft's going to drop out of the console market entirely. They're going to focus exclusively on cheap PCs, and I don't know, they'll release like streaming boxes or something. And then Sony will probably still make PlayStations. It's the only thing that really makes them that much money nowadays. So I'm sure we'll get the PS6 and 7 and 8 and 9. They should call the PS10 the PSX. That'll come out in like probably 2060 or something. I don't know what the timeline looks like on that, but yeah, I don't know. This is a very long, very rambly video. I hope you guys enjoyed me talking utter nonsense for like what, it's been 20 minutes now. I had to get I had, you know what, I hadn't covered the awful gaming news for the year, and I guess this kind of provoked it because I saw something cool and I want to talk about cool things, and you know, that leads perfectly into Sony just mismanaging their series and other stuff. I don't know. Weird time in the industry. Keep yourselves cornered for probably some cool stuff in the next few weeks. I mean, we got a Nintendo Direct to cover. I'm sure there's going to be a lot to talk about there later.